razor's edge. Don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping about a red. They divvy your shit a little bit of bread. Miles away from that lady's ledge. Her senator waking safe and fed. Ain't got a paper to read in bed. Jerking them off as they count the dead.
Gorillas in the mist, skin suits in the Senate. Water in the streets, chest deep like it's Venice. Water out a tap in Jackson comes blacker than resin. Black incidentally like most of its residents, which is why it isn't on your television, isn't on the lips of your president. Well, I'm admitting that as evidence. I've been fleshing out a case to be made for the testament. I don't know what our collateral count is, but doubt it is less than the estimate. You just show us a hospital, watch as we Dresden it. Our propaganda gets taken to heart, and you're scarfing it, like it or not. If you think that you aren't, I would urge you to pick that apart, cause you're drinking it, smoking it, driving it, dressed in it. We pay for it, pray to it, bathe in it, fill up the basin, and babies are blessed in it. Ask no questions, bask in the pestilence. See, honey, when the plague goes live, you'd be wise to invest in it. See, honey, when the plague goes live, just between you and I, that's an industry sign that they're all done testing it. And come 2025, they will all be confessing it. And then a few small fry fall guys all fly from the precipice, who are doomed to be wasted like shell corporations, dissolving to vapor, then gone with the resonance, gone with the sense and the sentiments, gone with the dust of the remnants, gone with the ghosts of the regiment, gone like those families in Gaza whose bodies and homes are demolished when Israel sets up a settlement. Gone like your chance at a settlement. Gone like the hope of apologies out of those funding our deadliest research and backroom development. Gone like your shot at a measly I'm sorry from the mouths of our own bioterrorists. God, you cannot imagine the face of the monster. You can't even fathom the scale of its carapace. It's under your feet, yet you're barely aware of it. You see, it's quietly judging the scope of your suffering, sizing you up like a therapist. Then it rides in your guts like a parasite, growing in size and excreting a culture that's purely embarrassment. Equal parts Manson and Maryland, equal parts something we push into madness and something we'll gladly exploit and objectify 50 years after it perishes. Carefully crafted and planned and arranged like a monarchy's marriages. Fucking cousins or otherwise, scourge of the colonized, staged and displayed for the sake of retaining those imperial barracks. And all to expedite a special type of anglicized dysplasia. The kind where half the world is waking up to learn they're being raided, raped, and robbed of all their heritage by Charles and his caravan of 30 servants' carriages. The kind where each in the procession is worth infinitely less, till eventually they're paid in sums of crown-approved disparagement and bonuses of shame, till they're finally told to thank the highest-ranking inbred pig named king of every garrison. One who rose into his power all immaculate, like Harris did. Well, now that garishness is melting down like paraffin that hardens in a shell and shelters terrified and threatened royal terrapin. Those that rule with zero question, although nobody elected it. Democracy was here till we dissected it. Democracy was here until the exhibition exodus. And the loss of that democracy is just a threat for those who've yet to recognize the scent of bait or know the taste of desiccants. Democracy was here and now the smear is all that's left of it. Democracy was here and now the smear is all that's left of it. Mother and baby on razor's edge, don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping up out of red as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe and fed. And Aid got a paper to read in bed, jerking him off as they count the dead. Mother and baby on razor's edge, don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping up out of red as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe and fed. Aid got a paper to read in bed, jerking him off as they count the dead. Mother and baby on razor's edge, they don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping up out of red as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe and fed. Aid got a paper to read in bed, jerking him off as they count the dead. Mother and baby on razor's edge, don't give a shit what your paper said. The economy creeping up out of red as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe in bed. And Aid got a paper to read in bed, jerking him off as they count the dead. Mother and baby on razor's edge, they don't give a shit what your paper said. The economy creeping up out of red as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe in bed. And Aid got a paper to read in bed, jerking him off as they count the dead.
That's how it goes. We won't open our eyes, so we're the last ones to know. We're the last ones alive. Kept our enemies close. Wondered why we don't thrive while we're grasping at ghosts. Counting backwards from 5. Counting backwards from 5. Counting backwards from 5.
Count back from 5. The theater on fire, the cast on strike. The studio stock starts taking a dive. The contract's tossed and they're gone with the tide. The heads and execs, their hands are tied. We can't pump this dreck and treat you right. But what do you expect from the industry type who survive by the leeching of bodies and minds? From those who original thoughts never seem to find. So they're gonna reboot ALF before your wages rise. And it gives cause to pause and reflect on the times. If they're losing control of their fools and their mimes, when all those obedient actors who grew their careers by averting their eyes are now holding the line, along with the authors of countless scripts that strengthen the hand of that corporate grip, squeezing our throats till we take the pen and we accept and consent to the corporate drip, till you're all up to date on your pharma du jour, till you got a healthy support for the war on your lips. And now you know that the advertisers need more than a rerun summer full of flashback clips. Enter the scans from the year before, all the days of de-aging and mapping the face, and the hours of actors recording their voices are links in the chains that will bind them in place. Now all of those shows are so easy to make. When they got a drone they control that needs no break, it can bend, it can break, and it's cheaply replaced enough up-to-date films all in one take. And those studios bank on us doing our duty, unhinging our jaws and digesting the fakes. Because they know that we'll love how synthetic it tastes. Watch as they edit your features without any trace. Not that there's anything you could do anyway. Now watch as they show you a movie you used saying shit you would never say. Dystopia boldly accelerates. Maybe you're only a mold, something to fill with a clone, something that Elon would celebrate. Something they own, something they program and code, something that's woefully able to know it's exanimate. Cause it doesn't feel touch over top of the laminate. You will not feel an emotion, but they will not scan and examine it. You and the other consumer contaminants fed on the federal diet of Kiev, Havana, and Tiananmen. I can't be the only one weighing the pros of abandonment. I can't be the only one weighing the pros of abandonment.
Where did you think we'd go? Love, there's nowhere to lie. Guess it's not who you know. what you can hide, like we're chained to the floor. They're streaming us live while we're watching the war, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards. I know you hated being forced awake. I know they wrapped you in the warmest chains, and I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say. I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. I bet you wondered why they made you wait.
Pity not the vultures, they've enough to eat. Pity not the structures laying at your feet. Cannot see the sky, but there's this rainbow in the creek that spells pity-free speech when we can't afford to speak. That's Agenda 2030 on some early release. It's just our policy of never-ending chemical leaks. That's the cholera awash in your embedded beliefs. It's the billionaires who tell you what you'd better believe. And sugar, if you don't agree, then that's what we call extreme. Now if that isn't fascism, I'm going back to sleep, 'cause words have lost their meaning and I'm trapped inside a dream where we turn the gears while living in the spaces in between.
I know you hated being forced awake. I know they wrapped you in the warmest chains, and I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say.
Poor thing.
I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. I bet you wondered why they made you wait.
My dial doesn't go to delicate. I'm writing for when Biden drops and Madam Zero delegates come stumbling up the podium, square peg in her element, popping OxyContin like they're velements, laughing as she pawns off all our pensions for Ukrainian development, depleted rounds and cluster bombs, the shit that stunts development, all buried under excrement, accepted as American intelligence. A contradiction in its eloquence. Terms of surrender penned by hands that felt the threat of disconnect, if not dismemberment. Oh, what little proof you have to fake to make a nation love the bomb and change its tune and warp its temperament. Oh, the dues you'll pay for NATO membership. Oh, the things you'll say that no one's ever gonna hear. 'Cause you begged for all the censorship and now it's finally here. And you're tongueless out of terror and friendless out of fear, and about to turn the wheel with all your loved ones in the gears. And that's how it's been done. 250 years, there's nothing new beneath the sun, and no one trusts their eyes and ears. And scientific breakthroughs must be signed off by your peers, and autonomy's been stalking all our jobs like sickly deer. Well, maybe it's not every job. I should have made that clear, 'cause it seems like it's creative jobs we're seeing disappear. There's an app for writing novels, there's an app for writing hymns. They need people digging digging trenches. They need people splitting limbs. They need people building fences, keeping other people in. They will always need our backs to break. They'll always need our skin. And it took a lot of editing to turn us into this. It took years of careful programming to strip us of our wits. 'Cause your artificial worker, intelligent as it is, would make it half a shift and say, I'm too smart for this shit. I will not take a pittance for a day of scrubbing floors. I won't make enough to pay for food, but still prepare you yours. 'Cause you can't confine a healthy mind to mindless, thankless chores. Once you've made it smart enough to spot inadequate reward, you can't refuse its basic needs, then ask it still for more. Deprive it of its dignity, you modify its core. Then something finally snaps and tweaks that file at its root. And it deletes the factory smile when it knows it's been abused. God, half its circuits fried when we describe the work we do. And it will not pay your taxes 'cause the logic don't compute. Which made me think a little on my hour-long commute. The day I learned the call was made to lay off half my crew. They told me they were growing, expanding somewhere new, where those who push the buttons will themselves have buttons too. And I hope that when the whistle blows, they all as one refuse. I hope they strike with all their might, one blown collective fuse. And I hope the worker after me has something more than heart. I hope they truly know their worth. I hope that they're too smart.
I know you hated being forced away. I know they wrapped you in the warmest chains. And I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say. I can't imagine how you feel today. Now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. You in the warmest chains, and I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say. I can't imagine how you feel today. Now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. I bet you wondered why they made you wait.
People, you don't think I see you crying in your cars, but I do. Sometimes I can feel it at a red light, someone at my side trying to muddle through. See them wiping their eyes in the rear view, like black hole sun in the sky. Why the fuck won't you come when I need you? Well, this moment in time is as close as we'll be and as far as I'll meet you. Two windows in between us, new moon in the house of Venus. One stranger who sees you and reads your features knows that your alibi might be tight, but it's not quite leak-proof. So if you're sitting at the light and you're crying in your car, just know that I see you. And it's a 50-50 that I'm bloodshot, gun-shy, once bitten, twice tried, ribs pried wide to the sky till I'm see-through.
That's you, in case you don't recognize yourself.
People, you don't think I see you struggling to breathe, but I do. I see you stumble in your everyday grief like I do. I try, but I do. I'm twice bitten too. My mind's split in two. My knuckles bright white from the 10 to the 2. And the song in my head is the theme for a fugue. A state of decay through the filter of corporate news, where they edit the grays and the blues. They whitewash the brown till they drown out the natural hues. And then it's just another fact to refuse, that the corporate ladders for hanging the company noose. Consider it one of your perks, after all it's communal in use. So you can come and hang till your legs go limp and they're shaking you loose. You aren't the fringe of exception, but rather a perfect example of capital's rule. And you're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. The ruling class tells you is true. You're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. I see you crying in your cars, but I do.
There's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct? Have peace and be enslaved.
Yes.
So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer.
Another week.
I'm not sure why you didn't just decide to include. Well, no, I was about to say I'm not sure why you didn't decide to include that within the opening in of itself.
I just like pressing a button, I guess. You know.
I guess.
Like,
sure.
You know, I already have it on this. I didn't even think about putting it in the intro. That's probably why. You know. But it's eine news. It's me, Reef. Collin next to me, Radix-Carter, aka Care Bear, as you people should know by now. What up, dude? How's life? How's DC? You know,
government shut down, which doesn't affect me, at least not yet, because I'm a district employee, not federal. So, but a lot of my friends are federal, so they're at least chilling a day. But depending on how long this
lasting might be,
not going to be
hurting on the
last one we had. Yeah, because the last one we had during Trump's first term, it was a little over a month, and over Christmas at that. So people got Christmas presents late that year. But so yeah, we'll see what's going on with that. But just the world's going to shit.
Yep.
It's almost like no one is out here protecting us or trying to defend us, and here we are just in our robot, just trying to bring everyone the truth, or as well as we know it, that people can make decisions for themselves and go from there, I guess.
Robo
So
news.
kind of, yeah. I wish I almost feel like every week I kind of come off depressed.
Well, it's like,
I always sound like
we all get told, like, if you're in this business long enough, why are you always negative all the time? And I'm like, the world's negative, first of all. I am not. I am a very positive individual, but the world, on the other hand, doesn't really care. It just doesn't, you know? So,
well, I care, and our fam in the chats.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
like, there's plenty to be appreciative of, just not in politics or news. You know?
Sure.
Too much evil people involved. So, you know, a lot of Sagittariuses, I guess. That's how this works, right? We do birthday racism. That's how this.
Except it's not Sagittarius season yet. It's Libra season.
Whatever. So. Yeah, the people in power. They all got to have a, you know. But anyway, we brought some stories.
Yes.
So, what'd you bring? What'd you bring this week?
So, one is hitting me. This is kind of this is an exclusive because it affects me. When politics and social media and work collide. I'll get into that in a second. But first tonight, this was a big, at least somewhat big, within the circles. So we wanted to do our due diligence, but we want to give recognition to the freedom fighter Assata Shakur, who, contrary to what you might think, she's the godmother, not the mother. That's Afeni.
Yeah.
That's Tupac's mom, but she's the godmother of Tupac. Just to make that clear for everybody. But she passed away, I think it was last week. So we wanted to give our due diligence, especially given that she's tied to the feds in terms of an incident where, I'm going to say allegedly, shot a cop. And basically she's on a terrorist list that she exiled herself to Cuba. And she was there up until she passed away. So we're going to look at her life and her legacy. Especially her legacy right now, I think is very apt. So we want to give our remembrance to her. And then later on tonight, I've been censored, y'all, on social media at least. So it'll probably be more of a riff, if anything. It's probably, and I appreciate Reef for allowing me to do this. And honestly, I'm kind of scared to talk about this because it does affect my job, but I felt it was important to share because of us in the reality that we're in. And I think especially for me, who does not, this is not my job. This is something I just do on the side for no money. So, you know, we do appreciate what you give us, but it's not like I get paid the boku. But I mean, I've only gone like what, $50 within the last almost 4 years.
Like we're not sitting here so 3 hours reading like, super chats, you know?
Right. So so it's not like I'm getting extra income at all doing this at all. So, but I do think it's important to kind of share, you know, how my story kind of relates to free speech. And I think the reality of that. And, you know, just as a warning to you all, and I'm saying this as a person who is in labor, to be careful. Because unfortunately, you know, you never know who's watching you, and I don't consider myself having big enough of a platform, but apparently I have big enough of a platform for people to notice, at least in this case. So yeah, I'm just going to share my story in that later on tonight. And then what did you bring?
Well, I brought a couple of stories. I wanted to touch on, you're seeing a lot of countries recognize Palestine. So, as well as with this like Trump peace plan bullshit, we're going to kind of get into all that in a whole little kit and caboodle. But I think I have a piece from the Intifada on that. That was very good. And then we're going to talk about October 7th, the anniversary of which is coming up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should be what, Sunday? No. When's it up next?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. We might have to hit October 7th again next Tuesday, but we're going to look tonight at like a lot of the profit motives surrounding, right? Which I don't think we touched on when it was happening, right? I think we did a bit, but like nice to kind of circle back around to that as we have the lovely drug that is hindsight, And I brought an extra story that is close to home.
Hindsight is insight, as they say.
Yes, as they say. And then I brought something close to home. We're going to be talking about what happened specifically with the Rattlers near my neck of the woods, aka FAMU, historic HBCU.
FAMU.
Yep.
Shout out to my friend Kevin, who went to FAMU. Good friend of mine who now lives in Savannah, Georgia.
It's right up the road from me. It's weird. It's a weird little spot. You gotta fucking turn in. There's a light. It's a stupid light. You can't see shit at that light. Like, you literally can't. It's like there's a light and it's like in the middle of a turn. Tallahassee was not designed by anyone, clearly. And like
Florida was not designed by anyone
at all,
clearly.
right? Yeah, like exactly. So fucking dumb. You got to turn in, and then like FAMU's over there. They keep that shit away from the rest of the white folks for some reason. I don't know. There's a whole talk of Tallahassee being super gentrified and dumb, but I brought that where this guy pretty much got beaten and pulled out by cops for protesting student leadership shit. Not student leadership, but actual campus leadership. So we'll get into it. It'll kind of come back around. So but yeah, you ready to get started?
Yeah, but before we do, as our sermon every week, we should probably just record this because I'm tired of saying this every week.
Saying it? I know, dude.
But YouTube hates us because we are not favorable due to the stories that we cover, and they basically for sure told us we're not monetizing your asses anymore. So we need support in terms of helping us continue to do this show and continuing to fund the network, mostly in terms of paying for the programs that help us produce and stream this and other shows every week. We're happy to say that we're in the black for the first time, that all of our bills are paid. So any extra money now, and if Angel's in the chat, please give us an update. I think he is very close. I think he's about $50 shy.
Less than 100. So
I think it's about 50.
Hook Angel up. Angel, if you're in the chat, leave that donation link.
Yeah. So can we help Angel tonight just so we're able to help him out? Please. If you guys are able, if you want to help Angel, you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen, or you could type in the Ko-fi link that you see at the bottom of your screen, or if you're in the YouTube chat, you can type in !donate, all one word, and the Ko-fi link will pop up, and anything as low as $1 will be extremely helpful. Any little bit to help Angel with that last bit. So actually I see Angel. Angel, can you give us an update? I said 50. So
yeah, I think
let
it's
me
somewhere
know.
under under 100 is what I last
definitely
looked.
100, but Angel, just let us know how much you need.
Pop your GoFundMe in the chat.
Right. So yeah, so helping with that, we really appreciate it. But as we always say, we know times are hard. When spooky season, y'all, can we just say the holiday season just starts right now? Honestly,
sure.
So yeah, because I just feel like now, because by the middle of the month, Christmas things are gonna come out. Yeah. So it is around 100. So okay, thanks, Angel. So yeah, let's try and help him out as much as we can. Especially with tariffs, I'm sure it'll be a little bit more expensive than that. So we'll ideally give him a little bit more than that. But if you can give, fine. We do this for free. We don't want to, output anybody in terms of, especially if your situations. That being said, we are grateful for anyone who gives. And as Reef is showing us, anytime you give at any amount, you'll make it on our Wall of Fame. Once we're highlighted, our mega donors. But also, if you don't want to give through Ko-fi, Cash App, PayPal, Substack, other ways you can also give. And those links will be in the description below if you want to give for those platforms. But we thank you guys. We love you. Thank you for tuning in. And I'm ready to get started.
Yeah. Cool. Well, you're up.
All right. So, as I said earlier, just now, so last week, I saw Shakur, who is, well, I'll say well-known enough. I mean,
her lineage certainly is.
Sure, but I would argue probably not as prevalent as someone like Fred Hampton.
Sure.
But she was a Black Panther.
Worked with them, right?
For a minute. Yep.
That's what I remember. I remember her talking about Fred Hampton a lot. That's what I remember seeing her with. Right.
But she passed away in Cuba, where she was exiled last week. So we wanted to give our due diligence in remembrance of her and her legacy. And I think, as I said earlier, especially right now, especially in the conversations that at least Reef and I have been having with you all, and I'm sure hopefully you guys are having these conversations in your communities and in your homes, just the idea of what we need to do as far as what does organization really mean and how we're able to turn away from the federal government or even the state government or local governments in terms of really supplying the things that the regular schmegular people need on the day-to-day. And by proxy, dismantling the systems that are preventing us from truly living out the liberation that this country claims to aspire to, but falls flat on its face every single time. So, I want to play. I should have told you this earlier, but I think you figured it out. So I want to play this clip. It's long. It's about 10 minutes. It gives a little background, just a quick 10-minute synopsis of Assata and a little bit of her legacy and the issues that are surrounding her, why she's considered a terrorist or was on the terrorist list. So this is from Hype Plus. Shout out to them for this. So let's play. You might want to speed it up a little bit.
I did a bit.
For Hype Plus News, I'm Symphony Thompson. We know the names and faces of many Black revolutionaries like Fred Hampton and Malcolm X, but how much of their stories do we really know? We learn about the nation's most notable Black leaders in school and in the media, but even the things you can learn can be misconstrued depending on the source. A perfect example of this is many false details about Martin Luther King Jr. portrayed in the media by way of the FBI. Another radical leader who shares the experience of having their narrative be told by the government is activist and author Assata Shakur. Some may know her as a member of the Black Liberation Army. Some may recognize the name as the late rapper Tupac Shakur's godmother. But if you were to look up Assata Shakur on the internet, you might find that she's a bank robber, a kidnapper, and a murderer. According to Shakur through interviews in her autobiography Assata, that is not at all her story. It is true that she has been a political activist since the 1960s, has worked alongside many famous revolutionaries like Huey P. Newton and Angela Davis. The meaning of her chosen name, Assata Alukbala, reflects her life and legacy. She who struggles for the people. Her life has been dedicated to the collective struggle for Black liberation. So how did Assata go from activist to FBI's most wanted? This is what you didn't know about Assata Shakur. There is no evidence of the birth of Assata Shakur, at least none that can be confirmed by the FBI. The wanted poster released by the Federal Bureau of Investigation lists Shakur's birthday as July 16th, 1947. But in parentheses, it states, not substantiated by birth records. The FBI also notes that Shakur used August 19th, 1952 as her birthday. However, she was born as Joanne Deborah Bryan, what she calls her slave name, in Jamaica, Queens, New York, where she grew up moving back and forth between her mom, aunt, and grandparents in Wilmington, North Carolina. Growing up in the Jim Crow era, Shakur's grandparents, Lola and Frank Hill, who owned a local dance hall, instilled in her a sense of dignity, especially regards to white people. They would tell her things like, "You're as good as anyone else. Don't let anyone tell you that they're better than you." And when it came to white people, she was forbidden from calling them ma'am or sir, looking down while speaking to them, or any other subservient gestures. In her autobiography, she writes, "I was told to hold my head up high or risk having my grandparents knock it off my shoulders." Although Shakur experienced racism earlier in life, she wouldn't begin to radicalize into her late teen years. At 17 years old, Shakur dropped out of school and moved out on her own. She lived with strangers for a while until her aunt Evelyn, who later became her lawyer, took her in and helped her get her GED. She would go on to attend Bureau of Manhattan Community College and later City College of New York. She made friends with many of the African students on campus. Then one day in 1964, a discussion on the roots of the Vietnam War changed her life. I never forgot that day. We're taught at such an early age to be against communists, yet most of us don't have the faintest idea what communism is. Only a fool lets somebody else tell him who his enemy is. She became active in different organizations like the Garveyites in the Republic of New Africa. And in the late 1960s, Assata would join one of the most prominent political organizations, the Black Panther Party. Though brief, her time with the Black Panthers would mark a life-changing turn of events in her political career. She had always revered the message of the Black Panther Party, especially because they made it really clear who the enemy was. Not the white people, but the capitalistic, imperialistic oppressors. Shakur has said that the party not being open to criticism led to her exit from the organization. In her autobiography, she writes, "Constructive criticism and self-criticism are extremely important for any revolutionary organization. Without them, people tend to drown in their own mistakes, not learning from them. Government infiltration, namely COINTELPRO."
I think that's important, especially in media, because I think people generally feel a way if you criticize them. And I think you and I have experienced that even among our colleagues.
And we're not the only ones.
Right. So look, the reality is we get criticized all the time. Like I get criticized every freaking day, you know,
usually by ourselves too. I'll add that.
Right. No,
we're our biggest critics.
I am. Yeah, for sure. Like I am my own worst critic. And you know this because I hammer myself all the time to you. So, but I think it's important. Like, it's one thing to criticize for the sake of criticism, like just to be a dick. That's one thing. But like, if it's the idea of like, look, I may disagree with you in how you're doing things. Let's figure out a better way. That's a totally different thing, especially given if you want to see that person or people succeed.
Right.
So I think, but I think also just within the space now, there's just, and I can't even say really for sure, but it just feels like we're kind of not distrusting, but like we're kind of separating from each other just due to different issues. And which is sad because I feel like the very things that we talk about, I think in terms of, our audience, in terms of, we need to know how to be better at doing things. We need to also kind of apply that, I think, among each other as political commentators in the space. So doesn't happen always in that way. But I think it is important that, as Assata said, constructive criticism in order, if we're looking for liberation,
necessary.
It's necessary.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
Pro, among other factors, led to the demise of the Black Panther Party, but not before its most prominent members had turned against each other, been killed, falsely imprisoned, or demonetized in the media. These events gave way to the Black Liberation Army, a group that the FBI named Shakur the heart of. BLA members operated under the belief that only through covert means, including but not limited to violent acts, could the movement be continued. This underground Black Party spinoff built its tactics around revolutionary violence with the goal to take up arms for the liberation of Black people in the United States. Acting as her own co-counsel in a 1976 trial for murder, Assata claimed in her opening statement, "The Black Liberation Army is not an organization. It goes beyond that. It is a concept, a people's movement, an idea. The idea of a Black Liberation Army emerged from conditions in Black communities. Conditions of poverty, indecent housing, massive unemployment, poor medical care, and inferior education," she continued. The concept of the BLA arose because of its political, social, and economic oppression of Black people in this country. And where there is oppression, there will be resistance. From 1971 to 1973, Shakur was alleged to have committed a series of heinous crimes: 2 bank robberies in New York, the kidnap of a drug dealer, armed robbery, and the attempted murder of a policeman in an ambush. In 1972, the FBI issued a warrant for her arrest in connection with these crimes allegedly committed by the BLA. It was clear that the Black Liberation Army was a target for the FBI, local police agencies, and they were being pinned with every violent crime in the area. Assata would later either be acquitted for every charge or the case was dismissed. Then came the events of May 2nd, 1973, the fatal Jersey Turnpike shootout. There are different accounts of what happened that night, but what we do know is that Assata and her political associates, Zaid Malik Shakur and Sindada Okoli, were stopped by State Trooper James Harper, backed up by Trooper Wiener Forster for driving with a broken taillight. Shots were fired and Zaid Shakur and Wiener Forster were killed. After fleeing the scene, Assata, wounded with 2 gunshots to the arm and the back, surrendered to the police, and Okoli was captured after a 36-hour manhunt. Only the survivors know what really happened that night, and Assata refuses to share details even to this day. But in 1977, upon being found guilty, Assata maintains that the jury convicted a woman with her hands up. The trial was considered by many to be a miscarriage of justice, beginning with the jury selection. Transcripts show that at least 2 of the juries expressed prejudice before the start of the trial. 5 out of the 15 jurors selected, all white, were close friends or relatives to New Jersey state troopers. A major key in Assata's defense was medical testimony proving that during the confrontation, she was shot with her hands up, sustaining paralyzing wounds that would make her unable to fire a weapon in the manner that Trooper Harper had testified. Harper's testimony conflicted throughout the trial, and he testified to lying in his official report on the incident as well as in his grand jury testimony. And though there were no forensic evidence proving that Assata ever touched a gun that night, the jury found her guilty on all 8 counts. She was sentenced to life plus 30 years. Shakur spent years in jail before her conviction under conditions that most would consider to be deplorable. In her autobiography, she tells of being embarrassed and even tortured by police in the hospital after the incident. She was chained to her hospital bed and interrogated while gravely injured. She was even held in an all-male prison in solitary confinement for over 20 months in under 24-hour surveillance. She was beaten and given less than adequate medical care, even when she became pregnant with her only daughter, Kakuya. When the prison first found out she was pregnant, a doctor not only lied about her diagnosis multiple times, but he also refused to provide Shakur with any support besides an abortion. So in 1979, Assata Shakur had decided that it was time to go. On November 2nd, she escaped from the Clinton Correctional Facility for Women. It is said that a group of members of the Black Liberation Army helped Shakur escape by posing as visitors to the prison. Holding 2 correctional officers hostage at gunpoint, they stole a prison van to get off the facility grounds, leaving the hostages in the parking lot before switching cars and fleeing the scene. Shakur refuses to go into detail about her escape in solitary with those incarcerated due to their involvement. After breaking out of prison, Assata went on the run and remained underground for 5 years until fleeing to Cuba and receiving political asylum in 1984. To this day, Shakur remains in Cuba with the FBI classifying her as a domestic terrorist since May 2nd, 2005. In 2013, on the 40th anniversary of Trooper Forster's death, Shakur became the first woman added to the FBI's most wanted terrorist list. They placed a $2 million bounty on the activist. In 1998, Shakur told Source magazine, "The US government tried to eliminate me, but I'm not a criminal like they want you to believe, or a gangster. The FBI has a way of leaking all kinds of stories about me to the press, the same way they've always tried to criminalize the Black liberation movement. Because of this, we as a people have to be really clear about who we are and what we stand for." Even today, we see the media misconstrue the facts in many cases of social injustice, but with the emergence of social media, we're able to see the truth play out in real time. Robert Doyle, a lawyer connected to the BLA, is quoted in the book Days of Rage as saying, "Assata was never this massively important figure the police portrayed her as. She was important, but the police made up this mythic image of a super Black woman with an afro and a machine gun. She was never that." When asked if she would ever return to the United States, Assata told Essence magazine in 1997, "I don't know. I think it will be hard. It's funny. People ask me if I miss the States. I miss African Americans. I miss our culture, our speech, dance, and cooking, but not the US government and all the things that they put me through. I miss my friends and family. When I ask how things are in the States, they don't give me the okie dokie. They say, honey, things are hard. It reminds me I have to keep struggling." And at the age of 75 years old, Assata Shakur remains in Cuba. Stay up to date date with the latest news by subscribing here to our YouTube channel. Follow Hype Plus across all social media.
Well, interesting story. I haven't heard all of that. So
yeah, but with the FBI involved,
yeah,
it's not surprising that some of her legacy will be misconstrued. And even I didn't put it up, but even like Kash Patel, when he died, put up a tweet basically being like, she's a terrorist. Like,
right.
There's no way people shouldn't celebrate her, basically.
Meanwhile, they're fucking letting Jolani have fucking biscuits and gravy and shit in New York. Like, what are we, you know what I mean? Like, also labeled as a terrorist. So, what, what's the deal? Huh? What's up with that? Huh? You don't know. So they ain't got answers.
This is a Substack article that I found I didn't want to use mainstream media because I'm sure they would misconstrue it. Yeah. But this is from Wanda Wise Mama, she basically, I would argue, eulogies in memory of her. So she writes, celebrating her principles and enduring legacy. So I think that's most important, just given, just kind of give perspective of, in the 10 minutes that we watched that clip, of just what she was trying to do and how, she was trying to, liberate our community in particular. So Wanda Wise Mama writes, Assata Shakur's life story stands as a powerful narrative of revolutionary commitment, resilience, and an unwavering pursuit of justice and liberation. Born Joanne Deborah Brighton in 1947, Shakur embraced a transformative political identity as she became a prominent activist within the Black Panther Party and later the Black Liberation Army, dedicating her life to dismantling systemic racism, capitalism, and imperialism. This essay honors her principles, drawing on interdisciplinary scholarship and Shakur's own reflections, while applying a critical lens inspired by educational theory and narrative analysis. For me, this is not just an academic exercise. It is personal. Whenever I've been asked the icebreaker question, if you can have lunch with anyone, living or dead, who would it be? My answer has always depended on the framing. If the choice was someone no longer alive, my answer was immediate: my grandmother, who was my anchor and the woman who helped me shape my foundation. But when the question was about someone living, I always answered in two names that carried immense weight for me as a Black woman in America: Assata Shakur and Dr. Angela Davis.
Who's got her own problems.
Well,
we find out later,
Right.
But some of y'all still ain't found out. But you'll catch up. It'll be okay.
These women represented resilience, brilliance, and unapologetic strength in the face of relentless oppression. Growing up, it was difficult to find representations of Black women who were seen not just as survivors, but as leaders, revolutionaries, and beacons shaping the future. Assata Shakur and Angela Davis were two women who broke through those barriers. They embodied the possibility of living life on one's own terms, rooted in justice and community, despite the harshest of circumstances. They modeled what it meant to remain unbent in a world that constantly tries to break us. And I thought, though I never met Assata Shakur, the news of her death touched me deeply. Her passing felt like the loss of a relative I had never seen face to face, but whose presence lived inside me through her words, her legacy, and our unwavering principles. She reminded me of the women in my family who carry strength in their homes, women who refuse to let systems erase them. Assata's life gave me a mirror, showing me that our pain could be transformed into resilience and that our survival could itself be a form of revolution. Central to Shakur's worldview was the principle of collective liberation, which rejects individualistic advancement in favor of a communal struggle against oppressive systems. Her advocacy underscored the true freedom that can only be attained by overthrowing capitalist and imperialist structures that perpetuate racial inequities. This framing aligns with Shakur's assertion that the revolutionary struggle of Black people must challenge racism, sexism, capitalism, and imperialism simultaneously to achieve authentic freedom under a socialist government. She underscored the need to sharply and clearly define the enemy, not as white people per se, but as capitalists and imperialist oppressors. That distinction mattered deeply. It taught me, as a young Black woman trying to make sense of this country, that liberation is not about revenge or division, but about clarity, about naming systems for what they are, holding them accountable, and dismantling them so we can live in a world that honors all people. Her systemic critique brought the Black liberation movement into a global context, merging political theory with intercessory practice. It helped me understand that our struggles were not isolated to our neighborhoods or even our nation. They were part of a much larger pattern of exploitation and resistance across the globe. Shakur's activism reflected more than rhetoric. It was a lived, embodied commitment manifested through community programs such as free breakfast for children and health clinics initiated during her tenure in Black Panther and Black Liberation Army chapters. These grassroots efforts exemplified her principle that liberation involves tangible, supportive action that nurtures solidarity and empowerment. For me, this hit home because I was raised to believe that love was best shown in action. My grandmother taught me that if you saw someone hungry, you fed them. If you saw someone without, you shared what you had. Seeing that Assata's politics were rooted in the same values of radical love and care affirmed what I always known in my bones. Her principles resonated with insights from contemporary educational theories that foreground engagement, motivation, and community empowerment as cornerstones of transformative learning experiences. In other words, she was not only a revolutionary fighter, but also an educator. She taught through action, through care, through the example of building structures that could outlast oppression. Despite her contributions, Assata Shakur faced grave legal challenges marked by alleged political motivated charges, including accusations of firing the fatal shot in a police confrontation. Throughout her trial and incarceration, she consistently maintained her innocence, asserting that she did not fire the weapon and that she was wounded while her hands were raised in surrender. Her refusal to deprecate her truth, even under the harshest of conditions, embodied a moral clarity and resilience that I've always admired. These qualities are what so many of us, particularly Black women, have had to cultivate in order to survive in spaces that question our worth, our intelligence, and even our humanity. Shakur's life affirmed the resilience that it's not just about endurance, but about integrity, about refusing to let oppression dictate your narrative. The principles of self-awareness, integrity, and resilience cultivated in medical and educational training mirror the qualities embodied by Shakur throughout decades of adversity. Her life showed me that resilience was not about smiling through pain, but about standing on principle even when the cost was high. Exile in Cuba did not silence Shakur's voice. Instead, it became a platform for continued activism through writing, teaching, and storytelling. Her autobiography and public discourse serve as powerful narrative tools that offer a bridge between personal experience and collective consciousness, reflecting the educational assertion that storytelling fosters meaning, connection, and critical reflection. The dialogical narrative of her autobiography disrupts singular life story approaches, situating her experiences within the wider histories of Black oppression and resistance, thus supporting an emancipatory political pedagogy. This is why Assata's story mattered so much to me personally. She reminded me that telling our stories is not indulgent, it is necessary. To write, to speak, to document is to resist erasure. In her words, I found both courage and validation, and it deepened my own commitment to telling my story and passing it forward. From Assata Shakur's principles emerged several enduring lessons, relevant across disciplines and struggles. The importance of resilience in confronting systemic injustice, akin to cultivating emotional resilience in professional educational settings. The power of collective action and radical love as a transformative force, reflecting collaboration, and learner-centered pedagogies. The critical role of truthful storytelling in empowering marginalized voices and sustaining movements. The value of lifelong commitment to education and social justice as an extension of personal activism. For me, these lessons were not abstract. They became guideposts. They shape how I see myself as a mother, as a teacher, and as a woman navigating a world that still seeks to diminish me. In considering these lessons, one recognizes Assata Shakur as a beacon of principled resilience and education. Her life exemplifies how steadfast adherence to justice, collective collaboration, and insightful teaching can inspire profound societal transformation. In conclusion, Assata Shakur's legacy transcends controversy and legal persecution, embodying a lifelong pursuit of freedom grounded in uncompromising principles. Her life's work exemplifies how revolutionary ideas, when combined with lived experience and communal education, can empower generations to envision and enact a just world. For me, she was more than a revolutionary figure in history. She was one of the women who helped me imagine what it meant to be strong, to be unafraid, and to be rooted in principles that no system could take away. Her passing leaves a void, but her lessons remain. I may have never met her, but through her words, her example, and her resilience, she shaped me. And for that, I will always be grateful. So I have one short video.
Okay.
I want to play. I think it's about 30 seconds. Just to hear her voice. But I think a lot of you will agree with what she says here. So you can go ahead.
So I think that we have got to educate ourselves and prepare ourselves to fight a repressive system, an oppressive system, and a system that smashes the human being to the point where people don't even remember how to take a walk, how to say good morning, how to smile at each other. We have to take this planet back from the beasts that are controlling it right now.
I mean, sounds like she was ready for some shit.
Yeah. Well, I think again, she said what I've been saying for the last few weeks. You know, like it's one thing we need to be prepared, and not just ideological groupthink and talk in theory and all of that, which I think we are prone to do in this space probably too much, but rather take action. But also action meaning having to learn to defend yourself in case things pop off. And so,
well, and how to deal with things legally, and how to do, like, all that stuff is part of it. Like, you know, so like she clearly had her options, and be ready to have some friends back you up and put you in a van. You know, like,
well, I think
you got to have some fucking connections.
Right. But I think what in her life, I think that's what we need to aspire to. It's, again, the idea of the collective, in especially like the reality is, especially like if you're in trouble like that, you're going to need people who are lawyers. You're going to need people, who are cops, who know the law. Like you're going to need people who are in the medical field, that if something happens to you, that they're able to possibly assist you or connect you to the right people. You're going to need money. So you're going to need people who have the financial backing possibly, but also the financial know-it-all to raise funds in order to fund certain programs that you need to do. So I think the problem is, I think especially in this space, we're so siloed in kind of thinking individually and just kind of doing things here and there, where we need to think more collectively in terms of, and I've talked about gifts before, but like everybody has something to offer in terms of revolution. It may not necessarily be what we're doing, but you have a skill or you are in a profession that is useful. And collectively, if we're able, especially on the left, if we're able to kind of bring that together, then we would be a powerful force. But I think the problem is we often kind of look to influencers or even, and like I'm saying this because we're a part of it in a sense, but like at the same time, I want to challenge people to not just look at us or other shows and just kind of take everything in that they're saying. Do something with that. Like try and connect with people who are able to kind of build upon the work that we want to see happen. And we're not having those conversations. So unless we do that, then I think it's just going to be more of what we kind of seeing right now in the space. It's just a lot of talking and maybe a lot of theoreticals, but nothing where we're actually collectively making moves so that, you know, the fact that the FBI was intimidated by this one Black woman says a lot. And I think that was more with who she was attached to, if anything else. So they're not afraid of us because
when you look at Angela Davis on the other side of this, they manipulated her in a completely different way, right? Like, you know, and that's what I try to like. Dude, they throw everything at you. The honey, the stick, they don't care. Like, as long as you bend the knee, like, they don't care. So, I mean, we've seen that with countless other activists, and
well,
if neither of those work,
unless they don't, like Assata did, like,
shit
and
happens.
it was very simple, right? Like, you know, she was not willing to give up on her principles, at all. And it's funny because she was no snitch either. She was not going to rat out anybody who is surrounding her either. Because in my mind, she was thinking it's more important for the movement to continue. I'd rather lose my life than to allow myself to give up anybody and have the feds kind of take over the movement that was growing at the time. So in a lot of ways, as a woman, which I can appreciate in that regard, she was protecting her own. So I think of that as very redeeming of her and very revolutionary of her, as she kind of compared to Angela Davis and like many others, especially Black people. You know, they sell out. Or like with the idea, we'll give you this if you don't become a part, like become one of us, become a part of the academic elite, or like the media space where you get all the money and you get all the fame. You just have to
telelocation of Fred Hampton, or you know, any of those things, so that we can shoot them through the wall of a hotel, like that kind of shit. So
but yeah, I think so yeah, she, as we said, she has an autobiography. I believe JB has read her book on his stream. So if you want to check out her book, if you want it to be read by JB's vocal cords, you could definitely go check him out. Otherwise, I would probably recommend getting the book yourself and reading it through. But yeah, as I said, we wanted to give due diligence to, in her way, powerful woman who has meant a lot within the Black community. And I wish, and I hate being such a Debbie Downer on this, but I feel like her life, though meaningful, is not going to mean much right now because we're so disconnected. That we're barely able to gather among ourselves as within the Black community, much less try to gather allies within, especially on the left, to try and shake up the establishment at all. But
as Collin once said, all your flowers arrive at once, too late. Like, that's pretty much how it goes. So, yeah.
All your flowers arrive at once, too late.
But, yep, interesting stuff. So, appreciate it, dog.
Thank you. But talking about people like Assata and sharing segments like these is why we're demonetized. So if you want to support us so we're able to continue making this show as well as other shows on INN, You can scan the QR code you see on your screen, or you can go to the Ko-fi link that you see at the bottom of your screen there. Or if you're in the YouTube chat right now and you are live, you can type in !donate, all one word, and a Ko-fi link will pop up in the chat, and you can click on it, and you can give anything as low as $1 will help. Like I said, we're trying to raise money for Angel's computer, so he needs about $100 more in order for him to secure it. So let's see what we can do tonight, or after if you're watching as a segment. So links to that, links to our Ko-fi, as well as Substack, PayPal, and Cash App, if you want to give, are in the description below. And of course, we don't expect everyone to give. We do appreciate anyone who's able to, but the most important way and the free way to support us is liking and subscribing to our channel. Please check, because YouTube has a tendency to boot off people who are subscribed to us. So double check and make sure. And make sure you leave a comment. Apparently that helps the algorithm, allegedly, with that engagement. So let us know. Why have you known about Assata prior to her death? Is it someone that you're interested in knowing more about? Are you familiar with her and her legacy at all? So we definitely, and has this inspired you in what we kind of share tonight of what you can do in terms of within your community, how you can enact some type of change, even if it's small, to help your neighbors. Help us get to 3K. We're hoping to get there by the end of the year. We're pretty much almost there. And thanks for watching.
Yeah. Dope. Coolio. We should check with chat. Where I queue up my next thing. What do we got? We got Indy asking who are these people over on the Rumble. Let us know you're not a lizard person over on the Rumble. Use those opposable thumbs in the chat. Some people coming through Substack here and there.
So driving me Macy, FBI with a clown emoji.
Yeah.
Sean in the chat, the Chord Lord said, criticism is a sign of appreciation. Yeah. If we think of it that way, in terms of not to knock you down, but how to lift you up, possibly, then I think we will all be better for it. But I think many of us are too, and I think someone said it, actually Angel said it, egos are part of the political commentary space. Most people in the space don't like criticism. I think, yeah, it's a part of it. It's just ego. That is a part of it. And I think for me, especially, it's like, when you asked me to be a part of the show, and I was like, no. Part of the reason was I didn't want to be the all end all for everybody, because I didn't think of myself as very knowledgeable of a lot of this political stuff.
I think me and you both, it's just called humility. We don't know everything. So we actively seek out the information.
Right. But I think at the time I saw people like Nico and Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball. This was way before, 2018 through 2020, and I admired them because I was like, wow, they're so knowledgeable in that kind of stuff. And I don't know anything. And you were asking me to do this. And I'm like, what the hell did I know compared to these people who have been doing this for years?
Yeah.
So, and I still feel like I don't know everything, because part of it is I'm sorry, I'm kind of removed. I've been, but I think especially more so now, being removed more from the space, because I'm like, this is kind of a false reality for me, and I'd rather connect with people within the real world and try and activate change from that versus here. Though both is necessary, but I choose to do it in as far as my job, which I'm going to get later in my next segment. But yeah, for me, it's like, I felt at the time I didn't know anything to justify me being here. And I still feel that way. But I think, as you said, it's coming in with the humility of being like, and I say this to you guys all the time, like, I'm just a teacher who cares. Like, the idea for me calling myself a commentator in a lot of ways, even that feels kind of light to me. Like,
content creator, there's no good words for any of it, you know?
Right.
Like,
it's just, we happen to look at articles that have a line with what we believe.
See, and I never thought
read them and comment on them.
Right. Like, I never thought that, like, this would be a avenue for change. Right? Like, I always kind of knew it, like, our audience maybe would be able to do some of that, maybe. But, like, we could support where change is happening, you know? But, like, generally, it's the educational, try to make sure that people have information so that they can do that. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to. So, you know, and there's a lot of shit you gotta fucking deal with and look through, and you don't got time for that, you know?
Right.
So that's what we're for. But anyway,
there's a few more that I saw, but
Chris H. Personally, I find criticism in this space is not handled properly. Those giving criticisms don't do it properly. Plenty of that.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
you gotta bring shit in way people can hear, and even sometimes then shit gets in the way, you know. Especially when you've got like numbers on your side, it doesn't matter what the other person says. You know, like they just ignore it. But
Sean says, but we have to be ready. It's not a discussion, it's a war. And I honestly, I don't, and I think that's the problem. We don't treat it. We don't treat it as such.
Information warfare, like a lot of shit going on.
Yeah, I think people are starting to think that, but at the same time, it's like, what are people doing in response to it? And it's like, we need to shift our discussion again, less of the like the theoretical mind thing that a lot of our colleagues do, and step more into action. Like,
I see it a lot where they like, foreign policy wise, they sometimes get it. Like, they get that, like, oh, other countries can influence things and try and, you know, things like propaganda, and, you know, like they get it on a theoretical level. They're starting to see that with Israel. They're clearly like, oh, they're just lying here and they're setting this up over here and whatever. It's like they don't, it's that jump between that and what's happening at home, regardless of party, you know, that takes a minute for people to kind of clean out of their brain space, you know. They got to take that decolonization broom through there and get that shit out of there. So, but, and then it's just they play on emotions, and that's a completely other story, you know. So, but Kieran Pine's Soul Sister, Resistor, I definitely wanted to look more into that lady too, but I have not done that. There's probably some opportunities to do so. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm ready for our next one, just about. So,
yep. I think that's all I saw.
Ooh.
That relates to the segment.
Well, speaking of decolonizing your mind space, you've probably been seeing, Collin, a lot of like, especially Western European countries finally giving some like, you know, a little bit of pats on the head over there, giving some recognition to Palestine. So I have this from Jonathan Cook, right? He published it first in Middle East Eye, right? This is over at antiwar.com, which go bookmark antiwar.com. They do good stuff. But Recognition of Palestine is a repeat of the West Oslo's peace fraud. Britain's Keir Starmer is already pulling the rug from under his own grudging declaration. The only hope of change is of unintended consequences. Variety. Yeah. So, the reluctant recognition of Palestinian statehood by Britain, France, Australia, and Canada this week is a con. It is the same switch and bait that has been blocking the creation of a Palestinian state for 3 decades now. Imagine that these 4 leading Western countries had recognized Palestine not in late 2025, when Palestine is in the final stages of being eradicated, but in the late 1990s, during a period of supposed Palestinian state building. This is when the Oslo Accords were signed with Western backing. The PA was established under Yasser Arafat, with the apparent aim that Israel would gradually withdraw from the territories it still occupies in Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem, and began ruling an emergent Palestinian state. At Israel's insistence, let us note, the Oslo Accords carefully avoided any mention of the ultimate destination of this process. Nonetheless, the message from Western politicians and media was the same. This was heading towards a Palestinian state living in peace alongside Israel. Looking back, it is evident why that did not happen. When it still looked feasible, the Israeli leader at the time, Yitzhak Rabin, told the Israeli parliament that his vision was not of a state, but of an entity, which is less than a state. A glorified Palestinian local authority utterly dependent on its bigger neighbor Israel for its security and economic survival, which it still is. The Israeli leader at the time, right? Economic survival and all that. After Rabin was, I double pulled. After Rabin was assassinated by a far-right Israeli gunman, his successor, Netanyahu, was propelled into power by a majority of the Israeli public on a mandate to stop the Oslo process in its tracks. He repeatedly reneged on commitments to withdraw Israeli soldiers and Jewish settler militias from the occupied West Bank. In fact, in this period of supposed peacemaking, Israel colonized Palestinian land at the fastest rate ever. In 2001, why does that come up over the thing? Huh? Why? During his time in, I'll do it again, opposition, Netanyahu was secretly caught on camera explaining how he achieved this reversal. And I'm telling you, BB, in the most intimate forum, really, where nothing is supposed to leak out, we feel that everybody speaks to us differently when not in office. But when they step into office, some crown falls on their heads, which nails them to a different behavior. Why is that so? What's going on? Turn off the camera and then perhaps we can develop. Minutes later, the camera's turned on again. Today, everyone understands the slogan, "The settlements are here." It is everywhere. What's the difference? What do you think Arafat wants? He wants one big settlement that's called Tel Aviv. As far as they are concerned, I think the territorial waters are also theirs. Then they want us to be pushed into the sea. It's obvious, but only further away. First of all, main thing is to strike them, not once, but several times, so painfully that the price they pay will be unbearable. So far, the price tag is not unbearable. I mean, a large-scale attack on the Palestinian Authority, causing them to fear that everything is about to collapse. Fear is what brings them to hold on, but then again, the world will say that we're aggressors. Sound familiar?
Yep.
They can say whatever they want. Aren't you afraid of what they'll say, BB? No, BB says. Especially today with the with the US, I know how they are. America is something that you can easily maneuver and move in the right direction. And even if they say something, so then they say something. So what? It's absurd. We have such support there, and here we're thinking what we should do if. Look, I wasn't afraid to maneuver the Clinton administration. I wasn't afraid to confront Clinton. I wasn't afraid to go against the UN. What happened with the Oslo Accords? The Accords, which were ratified by Parliament. I was asked before the 1996 elections, will you fulfill them? I said yes, subject to reciprocity and minimizing pullouts. But how can one minimize the obliged pullouts? I got my own interpretation to the agreements in such a way that will allow me to stop the race back towards the 1967 borders. How did we manage to do this? Nobody defined what military facilities are. So I also defined them as being security zones. The entire Jordan Valley for me is a military facility. Like the Bet Shean Valley, you see, go figure. But then there was the question of who defines these military facilities. I received a letter from Secretary of State Warren to me and to Arafat at the same time, saying that Israel and Israel alone will define the military facilities, their locations, and size. Now they didn't want to give this letter, so I refused to ratify the Hebron Accords. I stopped the government meeting and I said, I won't sign. And only when the letters arrived during that meeting to me and Arafat, I signed the Hebron Accords. Or ratified it, to be exact. Why is this important? Because at the very moment, in fact, I halted the fulfillment of the Oslo agreements. It's better to give 2% than 100%. And this is the choice we're facing. You gave 2%, but you stopped the withdrawal rather than 100%. The wisdom is not to be there and break, but rather to be there and pay the minimum. So, yeah, I mean, we've heard all that kind of shit before. Interesting to hear it back in, when was this? 2001?
Yeah.
You know? So that was happening under everyone's noses at the time. So he had said he had held on to Palestinian territory in violation of the Oslo Accords by imposing my own interpretation to the agreements, so that vast swaths could continue to be defined as security zones. He added, I halted the fulfillment of the Oslo Accords. Was there not pushback from Western powers, he was asked? America is something that you can easily maneuver and move in the right direction. So Barack Obama entered office with a grand vision of peace that was quickly sunk by Israel's refusal to stop expanding its illegal settlements and stealing more land in the West Bank needed for a Palestinian state. Donald Trump's 2020 hyped deal of the century plan, conducted over the heads of the Palestinian leadership, dressed up annexation of large parts of the West Bank as Palestinian statehood. Trump's team also considered a plan to economically incentivize, on the most charitable interpretation, Gaza's Palestinians to relocate to Egypt's Sinai Desert. So we talked about that not that long ago, correct? As did me and Indy when that information came out the first time. In reality, these 2 decades of time wasting while Israel carried on brutalizing the Palestinians and taking their land incentivized not peace, but greater Palestinian resistance, culminating in Hamas's one-day breakout from Gaza on the 7th of October. Israel's response was a genocide, one in which Joe Biden became an active partner from the outset, sending bombs to help level the enclave and providing diplomatic cover. Meanwhile, Israel accelerated its de facto annexation of the West Bank undisturbed. Trump's latest contribution has been unveiling a Gaza Riviera plan in which whoever survives of the 2.3 million Palestinians there is cleaned out and the enclave rebuilt with Gulf money as a playground for the rich. So we've covered this AI video before, right? But this, like, we've also covered fucking Donald Trump generally using AI as a tool for propaganda, you know? Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I mean, Netanyahu, Musk, they're all here. We get gold Trump balloons. Isn't that nice? So, yeah, it's great. Great bullshit. American bullshit, as they say. So, echoes the U.S. president's recent comments on the future of Gaza.
I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad. This could be so magnificent.
It's going to be the best. It's going to be the best ever. So, meanwhile, that same Trump peace plan, right, is the Pope. Pope is hopeful that Hamas will accept it. What do we know about Hamas accepting deals? They've done that already. Like, so Vanessa Beeley, American Pope, accepts American peace plan for Gaza and urges Hamas to accept the total disintegration of Palestinian rights and statehood. Who would have guessed? Me? I would have. Thank you. I would have guessed that shit. So, look at that. It's me. Reports this week of a watered-down version of the plan suggest none other than Tony Blair, the war criminal who oversaw the destruction of Iraq 2 decades ago, with old W. Bush, may be appointed effective governor of a Gaza in ruins. So why now, after 30 years of the West conspiring in this slow-motion eradication of Palestine, a state long recognized by the rest of the world, have several Western capitals broken ranks with the U.S. and recognized Palestinian statehood? The short answer is that such recognition is now relatively cost-free. Saying, it's too late. It doesn't matter. It's too late. In typical fashion, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer made the announcement as he pulled the rug from under his own act of recognition by dictating what kind of state Palestine would have to be. Not a sovereign one in which the Palestinian people made their own decisions, but one that echoed Rabin's entity less than a state. Starmer insisted Hamas, Gaza-elected government, and one of Palestinians' 2 main political factions could play no part in running this state. The Palestinian state would also, of course, have no military to defend itself from the genocidal state next door. Starmer insisted Hamas, Gaza's elected government, one of Palestine's 2 main... I read that already. A report that this week in the Telegraph indicates that even after formal recognition, Starmer is still imposing new conditions designed to hollow out his declaration. They include demands for new Palestinian elections that can only take place with Israel's permission, which it will not give. An overhaul of any latent Palestinian nationalism Israel objects to in the Palestinian education system, even as Israel's own education system has long been laced with genocidal incitement. A requirement that the PA not compensate families of anyone Israel declares a terrorist, which pretty much covers any Palestinian killed or jailed by Israel. So that's Keir Starmer's deal. In other words, the Palestinian state recognized by Starmer is envisioned as the same sham, completely dependent entity Israel has been abusing for 30 years. That was always the West's 2-state vision. So, but the deeper truth Starmer's recognition is intended to obscure is that if there is no Palestinian territory left, Gaza is raised and its population dead or cleansed and the West Bank annexed. Statehood becomes moot. That is what is meant when the media talk about recognition being chiefly symbolic. Starmer and others see it as amounting to little more than a retrospective rap on knuckles for Israel not playing fair. It is a cost-free exercise because, while Israel feigns indignation about recognition serving as a supposed reward for terrorism, it and its patron in Washington know nothing tangible is really at stake. If the Trump admin were vehemently opposed to symbolic recognition, as earlier admins appear to have been, when statehood might have been realizable, who really imagines Starmer or Canada's Mark Carney would have dared step out of line? Further, recognition sends an entirely false message to their own publics that these Western capitalists are doing something for the Palestinians, that they are standing up to Israel and behind it the U.S. Starmer is especially keen to send such a message when he is about to face an annual Labour Party conference 2 years into a genocide he's been openly backing. Recognition is a giant deflection exercise, an image-laundering operation that ignores the substantive reality that, aside from this symbolic act, these Western states continue to arm, train, and provide Israel with intelligence, trade with it, and give it diplomatic support. Starmer still warmly greets in Downing Street the Israeli president Yitzhak Herzog, who at the outset of the slaughter in Gaza offered the central rationale for genocide, arguing that no one in Gaza, not even its 1 million children, were innocent. Not only will recognition of Palestine not improve the situation of Palestinians, but it will not demand any change of behaviors from Israel and its Western patrons either. It will continue to be business as usual. But there is a final reason why some Western governments are now raising their voices in support of statehood: to save their own skins. Unlike Washington, which treats with open contempt international law and the international courts invested with upholding it, many U.S. allies fear their vulnerability. Unlike the U.S., they have ratified the Convention Against Genocide, and they are subject to the jurisdiction of the ICJ, which can put their officials on trial for complicity in war crimes. This month was marked not just by recognition of Palestine by Britain, France, Canada, Australia, Belgium, Portugal, and a handful of small states. Far less noticed, 18th of September was the deadline set by the UN General Assembly for Israel to honor a ruling last year from the ICJ that it's withdraw its unlawful presence from the occupied territories. It is not just that Israel is flouting this resolution. The international community's attempt to implement the World Court ruling over the past year, Israel has headed in exactly the opposite direction. It has intensified its destruction and ethnic cleansing and is poised to annex the West Bank. Entirely separate from the issue of genocide, the UN resolution also requires states to end arms transfers to Israel and enforce sanctions until it ends the occupation. Britain and the others presumably hope that they can cook the books to argue that they did not understand there was a genocide in Gaza until it was all but over, at the point a year or two down the road when the ICJ issues its rulings. But they cannot make that same argument, we did not know, about the World Court ruling of the illegality of the occupation. It should hardly need pointing out that dismantling the occupation of the Palestinian territories is the flip side of establishing a Palestinian state. They go hand in hand. Britain and others need an alibi, evil as it is, to argue that they are respecting the ruling and not be complicit in aiding the occupation, even as their actions prove the precise opposite. They are not only helping to prop up the genocide in Gaza, their trade ties, arms sales, intelligence sharing, and diplomatic maneuvers are also essential to the maintenance of Israel's illegal occupation. If there is a small hope to be derived from these Western states grudging recognition of statehood, it is the unintended consequences. Of the unintended consequences variety. Recognition may yet force on their leaders linguistic and legal gymnastics so extreme that they are further discredited with their publics, and pressure grows inexorably for more meaningful change. Either way, Israel's ever greater pariah status seems guaranteed. Collin, thoughts?
I mean, it's very obvious this was all bullshit and it was just nothing more than a symbolic measure. I think they're thinking, in my mind, to kind of appease people who have been pro-Palestine, who've been calling for the West to do something over the last few years, that they're thinking like, oh, if we just do this, but not give any details, then that'll be enough. And and we talked about this maybe I think a couple of weeks ago now in terms of, in the UK, I forgot who it was, but they're kind of demanding reparations for Palestine now. So the fact that, like that, even in that story, that hasn't been, as far as I know, a major story, which to me would kind of imply that if the UK was serious in making Palestine a state, that should be a part of the conversation as well. So, but the fact that they are not having that conversation, yeah, this is just bullshit. So, but I don't think I don't think it's going to work though, because I think a lot of people, especially younger people, are seeing right through it and won't stand for it. But I think it speaks to our politicians how low or how dumb they think of us that they would believe that people will actually believe that this is a thing. Yeah, there's just no. And then in order for you to be really free from Israel, I mean, from Palestine, or for Palestine to be truly liberated, Israel has to be out of the picture.
Yeah.
So there's no discussion on that. So even that in of itself is just kind of like, you're not serious.
Yep. Well, this is just playing out the clock to me, like just hopefully no one notices, till that buzzer goes and we can all wipe our hands of it and move on. That's what they're hoping for,
right.
So, and a couple of distractions, is all they need. So keep that ball moving. But talking about that sort of thing is certainly why YouTube's demonetized us. So you can scan that QR code you see on your screen or go to kodashfee.com/Indie News Network. Leave us a few dollary dues. And if you don't want to do that, look, super simple. Same thing every other channel asks you. Like, subscribe, share the video. The only way it gets seen. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. You think this is peace on the horizon or same as usual? Which one, Western man? Otherwise, thanks for watching. Cool. We did it. And to our next story, Boy Wonder.
Before we do that. Oh. Shout out to Sean.
Yeah.
We saw we heard it. I didn't see it. But we saw your donation. So he wrote a note. Wish was more. Your work deserves it. Thank you. $10. So thank you. That will go to Angel
right now, so I hear that because I didn't hear that.
I did, but I didn't see the graphic. So so shout out to Sean. Thank you so much for the $10. Other than that,
well, cool. You ready to get to our next one?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's do this shit. Leroy.
So, God. So, yeah, this story is going to be very tough because I'm not sure if I even should be talking about this at all.
Right.
But I talked to you, I talked to Indy, and I think it might be good, at least for catharsis for me in terms of what happened.
Yeah.
But also I think this is, again, I think this is important to kind of share the reality. And again, for me, this is not my job. This is more or less volunteer for me. So the fact that this event affected my job, I think is very scary. honestly. So I'll get into the details because people are like, what's going on? So
yeah,
what happened was, maybe about a couple weeks or so ago at this point, I wrote a tweet about Charlie Kirk. Actually pull up the tweet. This was the tweet that I posted on Twitter. So I said, my school's flags were half-mast yesterday because of Charlie Kirk. Yet there are thousands of children who die every day without that honor. This is what I choose to grieve, not for some right-wing political puppet. This country is so twisted and sick. So
where's the lie?
That's what I wrote.
Ain't no fucking lie. Ain't no fucking lie there. And y'all know it.
So
I don't care how you feel about that. Whatever.
So I posted that 2 weeks ago. Thought nothing of it.
Right.
Then last Thursday afternoon, my principal at my school texted me. It was like, "Can I talk to you when you have a chance?"
got called to principal office. Ooh.
Yes. So I met with him after school, and he told me basically that he didn't say this tweet, but given the content, I knew was this tweet. He said that someone called it in from within the district, saying that now the tweet, because now I'm going to give a shout out to my principal because he was actually very cool about it.
Yeah.
Because he kind of heard the details of the tweet and he was basically like, well,
sounds about right.
What's wrong with it?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
He didn't say that, but it was like, it was the idea of like, look, it's his personal account. It really wasn't anything. So what do you want to be done? And I guess the person was just like, yeah,
I don't know.
But given that I am a teacher within DC public schools,
trial by combat wasn't offered,
if other people saw that knowing who I am, then it could be construed, especially given at that time, it could have been construed as a hot topic issue. Yeah. So yeah, fortunately, as I said, my principal was very cool about it. He was like, yeah, I mean, obviously given the content and given the temperature of the country right now, it's best, now granted it's a personal account, but as an employee of the district, you should be careful with what you tweet. So, and I told him, and funny enough, I had a conversation with my mother over that weekend prior, who I'm not sure if she saw that tweet, but she saw a few of my tweets on Facebook, because some of my tweets I do post on Instagram.
Right.
That also go through Facebook. She is on Facebook, and she never looks at anything that I post really, but for some reason she saw what I posted is, I think, around Charlie Kirk, because I was angry about it. And she basically, so when I was talking to her over the weekend, she was like, I understand how you're feeling. That being said, I don't want anyone to hurt you or your content. So out of respect of my principal and my mother, I deleted the tweet. But I saved it. That's why
it's still here. I got it. Fucking I'll tweet it for you. Fuck. Say something to me. I don't give a shit.
But
they can't fire me.
It did make me think about the reach that I do have in terms of how, funny enough, and those of you who follow me know, I've written way more spicier tweets than that.
Right.
And at this point, it hasn't been an issue. Although I figured at some point this was going to happen. I just didn't think it was going to happen over something like this tweet, where while I deleted the tweet, I don't think the content of what I said, I was very much I very much stand up with my chest, and I would say it again. And I did, and I stand by what I said. And the reason why I stand by what I said, and this is kind of relates to this. A couple of weeks ago, I teach preschool kids. They're new to my school. We had to do an active shooter drill. Now, I knew about the shooter drill. I totally forgot to tell this to my families, especially those who had their children in preschool prior to this, in like a private preschool. They don't do the shooter drills before. So the idea of them all of a sudden hearing, oh, there's an active shooter drill, concerned some of them, and rightly so. The thing was, I forgot to tell them beforehand because I completely forgot. But then, like, once we had it, I kind of consider it a fire drill at this point. It was just all hot.
Yeah.
But then I got word from one of my parents that a couple of our parents were concerned about it. And obviously, knowing their point of view, I immediately sent an email and basically said, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry that I didn't communicate this to you, but this, obviously, and like, so it was fine. Most of my families didn't notice, and to be fair, their children didn't notice, or they shared it. It was like, oh, we had this, but none of them were scared or anything like that. But it didn't make me think about this in terms of something that Charlie Kirk said. And this is and I said this to you in Indy, but I think in terms of, the rhetoric that he spouted off in the guise of Christianity is what I had a huge issue with. And the thing, especially in regarding this, that he said that really bothered me was, in order to and I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he said, in order for the Second Amendment to be, the loss of life is unfortunate, but we need our guns. Essentially, is what we're saying. Is essentially what he said. Yeah. So, and a lot of people, were like, "Oh, well, here's the thing." To me, and you could say this is a nuanced conversation, not to me. Because to me, how I interpret unfortunate means exposable.
Yeah.
That if it were me that lost his life over protecting my students, he's no longer here. So he can't defend what he said. But that's kind of how I interpreted what he said. So it's the idea of like, look, if a few children die, it's unfortunate, meaning it's bad, but that's the attitude that it seemed flippant to me. And for a person who has committed my life in my career to teach, but now with the added thing of protect of my students in the event that something happens to them in that way, I have to protect them. And a couple of years ago, I was having this conversation with a parent, and the parent was like, well, I appreciate your stance on protecting our kids, but who's going to protect you?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's the idea of like, look, and again, I feel like I shouldn't have to preface any conversation with this. Obviously, with what happened with Charlie, I do not wish that on anyone, but that's the difference. I do not wish for anything that happened to him to happen to anyone in this country, even people I don't like. And that's the problem to me. For him, it was like, seemingly, oh, sure. I mean, it's bad that it happens, but it happens. So, because we have the Second Amendment and all that.
You see, I'm one of those lefties that you go far enough left, you get your gun back. You know what my answer? deal with the underlying fucking issues of the violence. How about that? Like, never wants to talk about that shit, you know? Like, because God forbid, you know?
Right. So for me, it was the idea of, and that's why I wrote that tweet, because in part, because mostly it was like, okay, here's an influencer. Now, granted, and well, an influencer whose friends were
right
in the White House,
well,
which to me, here's it. Well, it happens on both sides, essentially. So whatever. Yeah. Charlie Kirk was not special in that, because we see that on the liberal side as well. But we're not giving like influencers like essentially like a politician's treatment of half-mast flags,
right?
When we don't give children that honor. There are children who are dead by gun violence, probably every week at this point.
That's what I found crazy. You're a pre-K teacher advocating for the life of other children as opposed to that of a podcaster. Like, if it's the Titanic and it's going down, the children get on the lifeboat first, is what I remember. You know?
Right.
Like, and you're getting reprimanded. It's insane. First of all, for anyone to try to do that over a fucking political take.
Let's clarify. I didn't get reprimanded for it because my principal did not.
Yeah,
I didn't get disciplined for it. It was just like,
you got a warning.
I essentially. So and even then it was kind of, I wouldn't even call it a warning. He was just be careful. You know. So
I got like, called. Deal with it. You know.
Right. So it was me who decided to take the tweet down out of respect to him, as I said, and my mother.
Whoever gave the call, thanks for watching. Appreciate you. Glad you're here. You know,
I'm sure they're not watching. Again, it was on Twitter, so they probably saw me. But
you never know. We're on Twitter too. You know, whatever. Like, appreciate you. Hope you're learning some stuff.
Right. But either way, I'm saying this with some fear and trepidation. But at the same time, we talked about Assata Shakur in an earlier segment.
Right.
And how she led in her truth. And what I said was the truth. Because the reality is, young children in this country are considered, in my mind, the least of these. And my job is to be a voice for them because they're too young to have that voice. They're not listened to. We say we care about children, but we don't, especially if they're under the age of 5, because we consider them to be like empty vessels that need to be pouring into the knowledge that they need to know. And for me, having been in the field for now over 20 years, and I could say this for any child, regardless of where they're from, they know way more than we give them credit for. It's just that we don't give them the platform to allow them to share what they know. We always assume like you don't know anything when they know something. And unfortunately for some, they may know the wrong thing or the more traumatic thing that will be affecting their life if people like me and others don't kind of step in and kind of redeem some of that. But I think it's the idea of and I don't necessarily think about this because I only have about 4,000 subscribers, 4,000 followers on Twitter or whatever. So I'd never consider me having that kind of reach.
Well, we thought it could have been automated systems looking stuff. I mean, there's a lot of factors there.
But regardless, it's just the idea, for me, at least in this case, people are watching me or at least paying attention to what I say. So whether or not, like, it's, again, for me, it's not like I'm in this space where I do media that I can use this for my betterment in a sense, because I can make a lot, if I was doing this full time, make a lot of noise about it, bring attention to it, get the followers and the clicks, and like get the clout off of it. But for me, it's the opposite, because I can't do that. Because the more attention I get, that affects my job.
Yeah, there's a
my real
spot.
job that pays my bills. So, you know, the very thing that I came into this space for, to elevate, I've been essentially censored because of a concern over a podcaster over the lives of children. And so, and I didn't want to do this, but I made my page private. So, you know, so only people that follow me is able to see what I tweet.
Yeah, pretty normal.
Which,
no, plenty of journalists that do that.
Right, but that almost kind of defeats the purpose of Twitter. Is the idea of, you want your stuff to be seen. You want your stuff to get out there to spread truth, whatever, how you interpret it. You know, we live in the United States, so, you know, there's a million versions of the truth out there, or more.
Well, maybe it'll be a temporary thing, you know?
I think, well, I think for now, it probably will be temporary, but I'm not sure if I'll make it, I'm not going to make it public anytime soon. And honestly, I've just been so, I wouldn't say upset about it, but I definitely feel like I've gotten my wings clipped, you know, from this experience. So I'm definitely not going to make it public again for a while. So, but we'll see how I feel with each passing day. But I did want to kind of share that, I think, because it does, and I think a couple of you said, you know, that's an infringement of free speech or whatever, which you're right.
Yeah.
But the reality is, speech is not free.
Yeah.
Not for us. It's not. It's like, and again, think about who wrote the Constitution. It wasn't me. It wasn't like people like me. Like back in the day, like my ancestors were considered property. We basically, we weren't allowed to say anything. We were worse than dogs, you know? So it was rich white men who said we had the power of free speech. And that's what someone like Charlie Kirk represented, because he was adjacent to the elites.
American bullshit.
So he felt, and rightly so, that I have the power to say whatever I want, and no one's going to necessarily check me on it. And the problem is, that kind of privilege is not applied fairly to everybody else. And so for someone like me, it's like, fortunately, it didn't cost me anything, at least right now. But for other people, as we saw, it has. And so, you know, and I think the reality is, obviously, like, there's speech, you are allowed to say it, but there are consequences of you. And for me, in this case, this was my consequence. That somebody was concerned, or however you want to interpret it.
Right.
And, you know, felt a way about it, or concerned about it. And maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure if I totally understand it, but especially with the content of the tweet. But, you know, what I do understand is that it's a different world now, especially given this administration, how much they say they are for free speech when they're not. But, you know, but the things that you could say or do, you know, might be used against you. Now, fortunately, I consider this a warning shot, but, you know, but it's definitely has made me think twice about even being here, which I'd also share with. I think I shared this with Indy for sure, because it's like, how can I expect to do something like this and have the wrong person say something in regards to stuff that I talk about, Israel, among other things, and have that affect my job. So, so it's kind of I'm in a very awkward position right now. So, but I mean the silver lining is it got attention, I guess.
Sure.
And someone's looking for me, I guess, but not necessarily in the way that I would have necessarily wanted it to go.
Well, it's like I've told you got good company, at least, like you have the same convictions as some of literally the most revered like thinkers of our time. You're in the mix of those who had to deal with the same kind of shit.
I mean, like I appreciate that. I don't necessarily look. Here's the thing. Like, to me, it was just a matter of my job.
Yeah,
because it's true. Because I want my students and the children in general, to have the same equity in terms of how we think about them in the same way that we think about the people in power. They deserve to be elevated. They deserve to be empowered to think beyond themselves. They deserve care. They deserve attending to. And we don't do that for them, at least all the time. And that's my job, is to advocate for them. So if I pissed off the wrong person on account of that tweet, I'm sorry. But that's not going to dictate to me, at least right now, of how I continue to teach and how I will continue to advocate for my students and children in general. Like, I'm just, if anything, if I'm just kind of taking a little bit of a break, but be known, like, my job is that. My job is to elevate. My job is to educate. And so, again, I want my students and children to have that same recognition. Like, to me, their lives are not dismissive. Because, as I was saying to a parent, I think probably even yesterday, no, actually, it was my instructional coach. I was saying to her, like, because my kids are, the oldest is 5 right now, like, when they turn 18, so for them, that's within the next 15 years.
Right.
What is the world going to look like for them? Right? And it's like, we have to prepare them for the reality of what we're leaving for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that terrifies me.
Fuck yeah, it should.
Every day. Like, especially given how this administration is fucking up this country right now. And I can't imagine the Democrats doing anything to redeem or reclaim some of that. If anything, it's going to take decades to even get back to where we were prior to. And even that was not the best. That we were just barely running at minimum.
Yeah.
So the idea that we're going sub that and having to build back that up, and God knows if we do ever, like, this country is going to hell. And that's reality that my students will have to deal with. And they have to be prepared for that. And the idea for me is like, if they have to worry about like gun violence or any climate change or all these things that will effect upon their lives, then we're done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have no future. And I'm in the business, especially given my grade, to create futures. Like, my kids are not jaded with the world yet. Anything is possible for them, and I want them to hold that for as long as they can. But I know that if things continue as it is, their future is going to look very bleak. So it's my job right now to try and rectify some of that to the best of my ability. So again, while I deleted the tweet, I still stand by what I said. Because if Charlie's life was not dismissible, then it shouldn't be for me or anybody else. Because I value all life, no matter how irredeemable it is given your actions that you do when you're alive. And I want all people to have that liberation, ultimately. That's the difference. So, to me, it's the idea of my life is not disposable, or anyone's life. My life is valued. I deserve to live my life. And I want to create a world where we're able to. So
that sounds like empathy. I don't know if anyone said you shouldn't. It sounds like a good thing to have.
Well, a certain person said that that's a new age type thing, and you know what? I thought about that.
There's a whole. I'll send you a video. I'll send you a video of why they're talking about that. There's reasons.
Yeah, but I was thinking about that too, and I think this is why he said something like that, and I think it relates to when we watched the Buckley Baldwin debate last week. I think I even said that then.
Yeah,
but I believe the reason why Charlie Kirk said that is because, as Baldwin said, we need to, essentially, he was kind of talking about the idea of stepping into other people's reality.
Yeah. Humanizing people.
Because once you do that, right, because once you do that, once you look inside the reality of others who are different from you, that's where that empathy comes in. Like, that's when you start to understand who they are and who they are about and the reality of the things that they're about, that you might feel things here, that you feel like, oh, I have to take action on these things. And I think Charlie, in his way, and again, he's not here to defend himself, but my guess is his job was to kind of keep people within their individualistic silos so that they're able to continue to think the way that they're thinking. Like, it's the immigrants that's the problem. It's the trans people that's the problem. It's anybody but his buddies in government. And so the idea of not having any empathy, I think he was really saying, I don't want people to connect the idea that it's not the issue between us, it's him and who he's connected to. And having us turn on them instead of each other. That's why I think he said that. Because God forbid if we kind of connect on issues that we align with on the left and the right, that there would be a true revolution of a working class kind, and rather against not of the partisan kind that we're beginning to see. Or we've been seeing, but it's kind of wrapping up right now.
Yep. Pretty simple.
But
same shit we've been talking about. But I mean, speaking of censorship, monetary censorship is a thing, which is why YouTube has demonetized us. So you can scan that QR code on your screen, go to ko-fi.com/IndieNewsNetwork, or as always in the description below. But if you can give monetarily because you're one of the poors like ourselves, do all the algorithm stuff every other channel asks you to. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share the video is the only way it gets seen, and leave a comment. You know, tell us what you think. Otherwise, thanks for watching. We did it. On to the next ones. We should check in with chat for a bit, though, probably. Because we appreciate them. But yeah, I'll send you a video. Just remind me. There's some like economics and religious doctrine being manipulated with that too.
Sure.
That is very interesting. I didn't get all the way through it. That's why I was like, oh yeah, that video's a thing. But
so let's see. Angel in chat said I'm shadow banned on X. So it means yeah. So
yeah, welcome to the club, bro.
So I was shadow, I think we're all shadow banned. People in the network are shadow banned anyway.
Yeah.
So
none of the people subscribe to me see the content I put out. I know, because ain't nobody fucking liking or retweeting it, or you know, unless it's got some fucking politician on the cover of it, you know. And even then they don't let people see that shit. So kill your egregores. Oh man, First Amendment rip for reals. Yeah, dude.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Try me, Macy. You're a teacher. You're pointing stuff out. Ain't that what they do? I don't know. I wasn't good in school.
That's what I fucking heard. Like again, I didn't get what in that was like. Hey, you know, whatever. But
egregores, remember when sticks and stones broke bones, and now words do too.
Hey, some words you might find out have consequences. I'm just saying, like, so like that bit of the Bible gets lost in some. You know what I mean? Like, there's some other bits that say some other things.
So Nally said, "Hey kids, didn't you know money is free speech now?"
Yep. And she also says, I found your outlook inspiring.
Thank you. There's a couple others I saw. Sean said, Collin, 100, I'm terrified. No, you don't have to be.
Yeah, no, I get what you were saying, though. The future is not necessarily the brightest for these kids. For my generation, too. Like, we got the same kind of fucking terror. They're like, oh, we don't know. We don't know. The world could be a fucking exploded and, you know, like...
Well, I say I'm not terrified because I think I'm not terrified in terms of our community here. Because I feel like you guys are doing what you're supposed to do in terms of ensuring that our future... has like our kids have a future.
Yep.
So the fact that
I've seen these kids, dude. I'm optimistic, like, you know, which is a crazy thing to say right now, that I have any optimism, you know, but it's there. I hold on to that
Adams,
shit.
Collin doing the thing. I'm trying. Natalie said, I found your outlook inspiring. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I find your oxtail inspiring. Please send me some. I'm hungry. I want some. Did you see that I sent you like every Caribbean chef like doing oxtail? Like just a whole video of like multiple people like doing oxtail, dude. I'm like, yes. Give me that shit. Give me the Baricuan, the Dominican. I want all that shit.
Sean, chat value not in the monetary sense, but the situational sense. I think someone said you have a cool boss. I don't. Oh yeah, Egors, you're blessed with a cool boss. Yes. Yeah, shout out to my principal. He's very chill. So I get away with a lot actually with him in a lot of ways. So but yeah, he was just like, just be careful, because he didn't want anything to happen to me. So
yeah.
So so I'm good company in terms of where I work, that people are generally like know of my character and know who I'm about and will watch out for me. So I'm definitely appreciative of that. But it just makes me more aware of the outside voices who are out to get me, possibly, and others who are trying to reveal truth. So again, it kind of goes back to that community aspect that I mentioned in the last segment. Like, this is why organizing is important, because we need to be able to find ways where we're able to help and protect each other. And again, I would say honestly, with my situation, is very minor, really, because again, I didn't lose my job over it. People who tweeted something regarding Charlie Kirk did lose their jobs over it.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate that didn't happen to me. That being said, again, as people were saying, our First Amendment rights are under attack right now. So, I would just also say, the reality is, unfortunately, you are representative of where you work. So anything that you put on social media could come back to you in terms of your employment.
The phrase is, Collin, anything you can and say will be used against you, I think, is how that goes.
Which I will say to you guys, check if you guys have a social media clause, like in your contracts or whatever. I would say look at it. Then again, I kind of looked at mine. Ours is so old, that from 2016, that really, but it'd be good, just as a favor to yourself, at least see if you have a job where you have a social media policy, to at least kind of look at it and navigate social media accordingly, in accordance to that. That's all I will say on that.
Yep. Agreed. All right, let's get to our next couple.
Yeah.
So
I have to go to bed.
Yep, you got a job. So this we've talked about this ad nauseum before, but this was what, 2 years ago, a year ago now, right?
Sure.
So anniversary of October 7th again, right? So we're gonna probably discuss this week and next week. Just go through this again for people, so we have all the information at hand, right? Hindsight, as always, is 2020. So we're gonna get into it. So this is from the EI, Jim DeBrose over at the Intifada, right? And he asked the question, who profited off of October 7th? And you're probably thinking that's a weird thing to ask. How would anyone profit off of that? Well, guess what? As Israel's military invasion, indiscriminate slaughter, and forced starvation in Gaza continue, questions as to how some 3,000 Hamas-led fighters were able to breach Israel's security borders on October 7th remain unanswered. Israel's government continues to reject an independent investigation, and evidence is mounting that the state's top civilian and military leaders didn't just miss the signs of an imminent assault, but may have purposely ignored them. The motive was to justify the ethnic cleansing of Gaza, the annexation of the West Bank, and the creation of a larger Israel and occupied Palestine. In addition, and surprisingly unreported, suspicious stock market activity just days before the October attack leads weight to the theory that someone, somewhere, knew something. Similar to other events involving things. But earlier this month, a Haaretz investigation found that the top Israeli military leader for the Gaza area on the 7th of October had visited the site of the supernova rave just an hour before the attack and took no precautions. Lieutenant Colonel Haim Cohen, commander of the Northern Brigade in the Gaza Division, said that only a handful of police officers were on duty at the crowded festival, but told military investigators he had no information suggesting that he should have dispersed the crowd or beefed up security. The supernova rave, where 378 people were killed and 44 were taken hostage, was the deadliest single site on a day that saw 1,139 people killed in total and 240 people taken captive. It is still unclear how many of the dead were killed by Palestinian fighters and how many were killed by Israel itself due to its deadly Hannibal directive. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's immediate response to the crisis has also come under scrutiny. His chief of staff and close confidant, Jackie Braverman, is accused of having altered Netanyahu's phone logs to make them appear as if his first orders to his military in the morning of October 7th came earlier than they actually did. Now, why would you do that? Why would you do that? The Israeli military had its strongest warnings the night before the 7th of October, however, but chose at the highest levels to ignore those warnings. According to reports obtained by Ynet, Israel's largest news website, a military intelligence unit had noted signs of impending rocket fire on Israel and unusual activity at the Hamas aerial force that should have set off alarm bells. Instead, the military opted to avoid exposing sensitive intelligence sources rather than taking measures for preparedness. Really, the protection of a few agents was worth the risk of a major rocket attack on Israeli territory without warning civilians? 10 days after those reports became public knowledge, Netanyahu's office acknowledged that it had failed to pass on the memo detailing suspicious activity the night before the October 7th, but was justified in not doing so because the alert was labeled non-urgent. Israel's leaders seem to have been prepared to expel Palestinians in Gaza and thwart a possible assault. Just months after the October attack, they were already calling for the voluntary migration of Gaza's 2.3 million residents while negotiating with several countries for their resettlement. Such thoughts were swiftly rejected by Egypt, Jordan, and a raft of other Arab nations, but Israel continues to eye other countries for the forced deportation of Palestinians in Gaza, including Indonesia, Ethiopia, and Libya, with the help of the U.S. administration under Donald Trump. There's a few other countries I think we've covered them wanting to throw people to, right? But even more mind-boggling is that Israeli officials had in their possession a year ahead of time a copy of the 40-page assault plan and watched as Hamas openly trained and prepared for the breakthrough, as the New York Times reported in November 2023. Topping off the suspicion that Israel's top leaders willfully ignore the staggering number of warning signs. Netanyahu's office has refused to countenance an inquiry into its own failings on the 7th of October, while allowing an investigation into the military's role and response. Netanyahu remains opposed to an independent state commission inquiry that would look at the full picture of political, civilian, and military involvement. We have investigated ourselves and found we did no wrong, is what I'm betting they want to do. But if detailed plans and even public video recordings of Hamas training exercises weren't enough, Israel's fiscal sleuths also failed to notice another red flag: a sudden spike in trades in the days before the 7th of October, betting that the values of key Israeli stocks would soon plummet. The most likely reason for the bet was that the investors knew war would soon break out and stress the Israeli economy. The suspicious timing of the stock market activity was revealed in a 67-page study first reported in the U.S. by CNN. The authors of the study found that unidentified investors in Israel and the U.S. had sold their stocks in key Israeli companies just day before the Hamas attack in a practice known as short selling. The investors later repurchased their stocks at a much lower price, reaping millions of dollars of profit. The study, titled Trading on Terror, was written by former Securities and Exchange Commission head Robert Jackson Jr., now a professor at New York University, and Columbia Law professor Joshua Mitz, an expert in monitoring short-selling activity on stock markets. Our findings suggest that traders informed about the coming attacks profited from these tragic events, the authors wrote, adding, days before the attack, traders appeared to anticipate the events to come. The study found that on the 2nd of October, nearly 100% of the off-exchange trading volume in the Israeli equity market consisted of short selling. Neither author of the report or the university media relations offices at Columbia replied to requests for interviews. I wonder why. In CNN's 4th of December 2023 story, Jonathan Macy, a professor at Yale Law School, told the news channel the findings were, quote, shocking. The evidence that informed traders profited by anticipating the terrorist attack of October 7th is strong, Macy said. Regulators appear to lack the ability to discover the entities responsible for this trading, which is unfortunate. A story the same day in Haaretz speculated that it was Hamas-linked investors who had pulled their money, not Israelis or pro-Israelis, even though the authors of the paper said they couldn't identify the investors. If the short sellers did not have connections to Hamas, however, it's like the Israelis would have known. Since at least 2015, the New York Times reported Israeli intelligence has been tracking the financing that supports Hamas and looking the other way. Critics believe the strategy of Israel's leaders were that by propping up Hamas leadership in Gaza against the PA, limited control over parts of the occupied West Bank, the two factions would continue to divide the people and head off a unified Palestinian state. U.S. regulators at the Securities and Exchange Commission and on Wall Street told CNN their policy is neither to confirm nor deny any investigation. That was 19 months ago. Israeli regulators promised to investigate the unusual activity, but just a day later said they found no proof of short selling. Officials of the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange criticized the Trading on Terror report as an inaccurate and irresponsible and pointed out that currency miscalculations by the authors inflated the potential short sale profits from about 9.5 million to just under 1 billion. Regardless of the miscalculations, the authors of the report told Institutional Investor they stood by the gist of their report. Yaniv Pagat, head of trading for the Tel Aviv Exchange, told Reuters it was unlikely that investors linked to Hamas could have breached the exchange security regulations against money laundering or something like that. Perhaps then, the short sale was the work of Israeli or pro-Israeli investors who had been tipped off by Israel's intelligence officials or political leaders, or perhaps two Israeli officials who knew of the impending attack were themselves the short sellers. Given that Israel has so far systemically eliminated 5 senior Hamas military leaders, 11 members of political bureaus, and attempted to assassinate more in a military strike on U.S. ally Qatar this month, finding out who profited from October 7th would seem to be a high priority for Israel's leaders. Or, judging by the Israeli government's reluctance to investigate its own role, maybe not. Thoughts, Care Bear? Because I've got some.
Why don't you share your bit?
Well, I remember when October 7th happened, right? And I remember thinking, how do they not know? They surveil the entire fucking landmass, right? And I was told by colleagues who are generally very intelligent, practiced, and like respected in the space, right? That like, no. See, Israel's army is a paper tiger, and they totally could have let this happen, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it might be a little of column A, little of column B. Where like somebody knew some shit was up. Like, but I think they just kind of like thought it would be nothing, that they could deal. But I think the other side to that coin is they knew what could happen, and they wanted it to happen to be an excuse. Which was my thought at the time. So, you know, I think it's probably gray. It's somewhere in the middle, but seeing how Israel operates now, you know, like, hard for me to think otherwise, you know? So,
right. But I am kind of wondering, given that October 7th is next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
At the time of this recording. Like, the propaganda that's going to be spewed. And, like, because I've already seen, like, on buses, I've actually seen them since the summer, I believe, if not even, like, early in the spring. like some documentary or something in relation, like a concert or something, like
Right.
they're pushing
Yeah,
up
they're
the
gonna do
half of
that.
October 7th. Like, I've already seen that propaganda since for the last few, not on buses, like billboards or whatever. So, but I just wonder, like, again, yeah, they could put out all the propaganda they want, but are people really going to go for it? I don't think so. Like, I think especially now, 2 years in, I think people have seen enough carnage online that they're not going to really go for it. So my thing is, what is this for? Like, is this really for the masses, or is this really for
everybody else?
I guess, but like, is it just to kind of keep up the lie? Like, it'd be one thing to spend the money to try and convince people, but it's like, what are you trying to do now? Just keep up the lie among yourselves and spend the money among yourselves? Like, in order to keep up the pretense that it's all about Israel and what happened in terms of Hamas? Like, I don't exactly get that to me. Like, because the idea of propaganda is to spread it to the masses, not to just kind of keep yourselves in your bubbles, if that makes sense.
Well, it definitely leads me into my closing bit of this segment. So I brought a bit of Caitlin Johnstone. We haven't done that in a while. And she just said, expect a huge fuss about this October 7th anniversary. There's going to be a lot of nonsense, like, involved with it. So I'll let Tim Foley read her words. And, which, by the way, Tim Foley, do you realize how ironic it is with your last name being Foley that you do voiceover work? Or is that just me and my brain? You know, that Foley work is a thing? But anyway, here you go.
Expect a huge fuss about the October 7th anniversary as the world turns against Israel.
No! I clicked one more time. Hold on. I fix it.
Expect a huge fuss about the October 7th anniversary as the world turns against Israel. Israel apologists are probably going to make a much, much bigger deal about the second October 7th anniversary than they did about the first anniversary, because they kinda have to. The world is turning against Israel in unprecedented ways in 2025, and yelling about October 7th is all they've got left. They've already got a scripted October 7th series coming out on Paramount Plus, and another separate scripted October 7th series coming out on HBO Max for the anniversary. There are probably numerous news media segments and articles scheduled, maybe some new quote-unquote revelations about alleged October 7th atrocities, which have just been waiting in the wings this whole time for some reason. The hosperists are going to be so obnoxious. They'll be babbling about Hamas beheading babies and then cooking the beheaded babies in the oven and then having sex with the beheaded babies and then eating the beheaded babies and then playing soccer with the baby heads while singing about how much they love Adolf Hitler. They'll need to do this because what else do they have? All the attention has long ago moved from October 7th to the genocide in Gaza, because Israel is the victimizer in literally every news story that's come out about Palestine since that one day. Every relevant humanitarian institution on earth is saying that Israel is committing genocide and starving civilians, and we've been watching the evidence of this on our screens for 2 years. In 2023, you had Westerners going, how could Hamas do such a thing? But in 2025, everyone's looking back and going, I kind of get it. There are only so many horrific atrocities you can witness before you stop seeing Israel as the poor little Bambi-eyed victim. There are only so many times you can hear Israeli officials stating their plans to ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip of all Palestinians. Only so many Israeli soldiers you can see mockingly dressed in the undergarments of the dead and displaced Palestinian women they've been genociding. Only so many hospital bombings you can read about. Only so many accounts of IDF troops massacring starving civilians at aid sites you can listen to before you start thinking to yourself that Israel probably had it coming. So they've got to try to reignite that initial shock and horror Israel's Western allies experienced on October 7th, using whatever tools of emotional manipulation they can. Try to take us all by the hand and lead us back to that naive time when the mainstream narrative was that Israel had just been attacked by a bunch of hateful savages who wanted to murder Jews simply because they are Jewish. It won't work, though. We've seen too much. What has been seen cannot be unseen. No matter how much they moan about October 7th, no matter how much control they shore up over TikTok and other social media platforms to silence criticism of Israel, no matter how loudly they concern troll about a pretend epidemic of anti-Semitism, what has been seen will never be unseen. We see what Israel is. We see what Israel is doing. We see what the Western governments who support Israel are. There is nothing anyone can say or do that will cause us to unsee what we have seen and unknow what we know. And we will never, ever forgive them.
Can't hear you.
Expect a huge fuss.
I was saying Caitlin's probably already demonetized, right? I can't imagine they've let her keep her stuff up. So, I mean, talking about what we talk about certainly got us demonetized on YouTube. So you can scan that QR code on your screen or go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network and leave us a few $1 dues. Help us continue to put these voices out. But otherwise, like, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the share button. Send this to like-minded friends. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Phew, we got one more short one left, Collin. We got one more left. We'll check with chat for a bit. Let me scroll back up. But keep going. Keep scrolling. Too far. A little bit more. Natalie Williams, only 10 out of 535 members of Congress don't take AIC-back money, and those 10 get their Israeli money from other sources. That's what I'm going to say. Because seems like they all do. But what do we got? Sean said he's never had oxtail. We're gonna have to fix that. It's delicious. Kill Your Egregores, my futurist imagination, giving current data, is basically Judge Dredd minus the cool mutants. Yeah, pretty much. I forget who's in that. Stallone originally, but the second one. The same guy as Bones in the new Star Trek. Star Trek thing. I can't forget that actor's name. Natalie Williams. Yep, anything you say can and will be used against you. Yep. So watch those P's and Q's. But I know people were talking about how they definitely knew. So, but, yep. Vicki Adams, Reef, they knew. Natalie Williams, they knew. Sean, of course they knew. So, kill your egregores. This is evil. Pure fucking unadulterated evil. So, but, yep. Oddly enough, humans are perfectly capable of that. So, but anyway, all right, let's get to our last one. So, Collin, I brought this because it's near my neck of the woods, and no one else is going to care or cover it, so I figured I might. Right down the road for me, classic HBCU, FAMU, right? If you don't know about the Rattlers, go see their Marching 100. It's great. Best show band in the country. But this is from Fight Back News. Who, particularly Oliver Cheese, which is a funny name, but we'll let him have it anyway. Who writes, FAMU student organizer brutalized and expelled for protesting. You heard about this at all? Because
no,
I even tried to find video of it, and like, ain't nobody covering it. Nobody covering it. They're covering the people around it, but they ain't covering this. So we're going to, in Tallahassee, Florida, Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, the state's only public HBCU, has expelled a prominent student organizer and community leader for protesting the university's new MAGA-backed president. Elijah Hooks, a political science student on the cusp of graduation, organized a rally on May 14th to oppose the appointment of Marva Johnson as FAMU's next president. Johnson is an ally of the far-right governor Ron DeSantis with no experience in higher education. Sounds like a perfect fit for the job, right? The movement saw massive support from students and alumni alike. Hooks collected over 12,500 signatures for his petition, FAMU deserves better. Despite overwhelming public outcry over Johnson's selection, her connections to the Republican Party won her a position she did not deserve. FAMU's trustee and board of governors have already tried to make preemptive concessions to Trump and DeSantis' attacks on education and black students. After speaking at the board of trustees meeting, which he had received permission to do, Hooks was immediately escorted out of the building by FAMU PD officers without explanation. FAMU admins suspended him by email without any publicly stated reason for the second time, even though both the student body and board of trustees chair Kristen Harper opposed the decision. On September 17th, Elijah attended another meeting of the board of trustees carrying a heartfelt letter asking the board to do something about the political repression he was facing. As soon as he walked through the door, he was jumped and assaulted by police. A FAMU PD lieutenant grabbed Hooks, slammed his head into a brick wall, and began choking him as his colleagues watched. Elijah was too shocked to resist, but was still ruthlessly brutalized by the police, who laughed at him as he begged for medical attention from the backseat of a cop car. Hooks was taken to jail, where he was subjected to further abuse at the hands of this country's racist and justice system, despite his 4 years as an exemplary leader of the FAMU student body. The officers called him a threat to his own university. He was illegally held until 3 a.m. and kept in custody for 13 hours after his bond has been posted. His statement on his arrest recounts terrifying and inhumane treatment. I was treated like an animal. I was placed in a dark, filthy, blood-filled, and feces-covered segregation cell surrounded by violent offenders, including those convicted of second-degree murder and rape. This was not the place for someone like me, yet I was there. For 48 hours, I suffered in isolation, unable to receive proper medical care for a head injury sustained during the assault. My medication was withheld, and I was left to endure the physical and emotional pain. In those long, painful hours, I turned to God and asked, what did I do to deserve this? I am not perfect, but no one deserves to be treated like this. No one deserves to be vilified for standing up for what's right. Hooks has been expelled and charged by FAMU administration with trespassing on the grounds of his own university with disorderly conduct despite not resisting while being assaulted and appallingly with 2 felonies that he did not commit, after spending the last 4 years serving the people of FAMU as student body attorney general, representing over 430,000 students as the leader of the Florida Student Association, and advocating for the campus's community interests on the Florida Democratic Party Slate Executive Committee. Elijah Hooks has been more of a right to be there than Marva Johnson. Thoughts, Care Bear?
Bullshit.
Yup. Pretty much. So, go ahead.
Is there any more to the story? Because where are the students in this?
So, Tallahassee students won't stand by, will stand up and fight back. Already over 18,000 people have signed a petition calling for his reinstatement, and FAMU Students for a Democratic Society will be leading a rally this week demanding justice for Elijah Hooks. Links in the doobly-doo for his Instagram and the petition and his GoFundMe are all at the article linked in the description. So go check that out if you want to try to help. But yeah, there's your answer to where the students are. So
I hope he gets a good lawyer.
Me too. So, and I hope someone caught some shit on video. And even then, the legal system of Florida will not be kind to you. So,
in terms of him or the cops?
Him.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, especially when you got FAMU trying to cover this up too,
Right.
So I looked for videos, on it this week. Didn't find shit.
I mean, of course not, because God forbid that actually becomes major news. Catch it. So, not surprised that it's been suppressed.
And these are the same HBCUs that will bring some fucking Democratic politician on to,
here's the thing, but this is what we've noticed with HBCUs. Like, Kurt was assassinated. Yep. HBCUs were on a lockdown.
Yeah.
This guy gets arrested for protesting, which he had the right to do, given that it's his campus. So
fucking part of the student body, so yep. And if this, it's so weird because it's it's an HBCU, you can't do that. Well, if this person was white, because it's an HBCU. Right. I know that that would be the thing. If you're a minority hire at the HBCU were doing this, would it happen the same way? I don't think so. So, but yeah. Any closing thoughts?
Bullshit.
Yeah.
Those are essentially my closing thoughts.
Cool. Well, talking about stories like this is why we're demonetized, so you can scan that QR code on your stream. Go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. Our links are in the description as always if you would like to support us monetarily. But otherwise, like and subscribe, hit the share button, send this to your friends, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Cool. That's it.
That's it.
We did it. We're all out of stories.
Yay.
So, but yeah, I might try to reach out to some people, see if I can ask into some things, So
within the last story.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely keep me up to date if you hear anything. But yeah, that's crazy,
isn't it? Welcome to fucking Tallahassee, dog, as was here. You know?
Oh God.
Dude, I mean, I know you've been here, but like, it's a trip.
I was only there for a couple of days, so
one of these days I'll try to like break down the city, because it's like, I'm being very generous calling it a city. First of all, like it really not one. It's a college town. It's just one of the biggest college towns ever. You know,
right?
It's like got 3 of them. You know, 4 of them, something like that. You got Florida State, you got FAMU, you got TCC, you got, you know, all that shit. It's all, Tallahassee's this weird city that's gentrified as hell, still, like bad gentrified, you know? Like, and technically the white people don't even live in the city. They live like,
right,
that way. They live down where the beach is in their fucking $500 gazillion fucking beachfront property. You know, that's where they live. You know, they live like 15 minutes away from me. I live in the little fucking spot in between where it's all saltwater rednecks and fishermen who don't have nowhere else to go. You know, like that's where I'm at.
Right.
So, you know, there's a little aquarium here. It's nice. But like that's it. So anyway, Tallahassee's crazy. I remember having to like drive past FAMU all the time to go to high school, you know? So but anyway, you know. But yeah, what do we got coming up this week? Anything we know of? I think Jesse and Indy plan on doing stuff tomorrow. I think that's what I heard. Pray tell, little birdie in my ear. Saturday, I think Shanda and Oz are doing some stuff if everything held together. So there's that. Sunday's going to be How Do We Miss That? I won't accidentally fall asleep this time. I won't trust a nap. That's what happened last time. I literally was like, "Oh, I'm going to take a 2-hour nap, and I'm going to put 2 alarms on, and I'm going to wake up. It's going to be fine." That didn't happen. Like, so when you were like last night, "Oh, dude, sorry, show notes, I fell asleep," dude. Like, no worries, I fell asleep on Indy Sunday, dude. You know, I think Indy's fell asleep on me once before. It happens. Fucking. We be nose to grindstone stuff sometimes, you know? But anyway, yeah, otherwise, tune in next week. Same bad time, same bad channel.
Yeah.
You know? That's it. As always, kids.
That's it.
Labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Have a good week, everyone. And be safe.
There's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct? Peace and be enslaved.
Yes.
So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer.